So UFC Fight Night Bautista versus Oliveira is this weekend, and it should be a pretty fun matchup. We have officially arrived at our first Fight Night card of the Paramount era and the year in general. I know that a lot of fans, including myself, aren't really too excited that an event like this is taking place at the Apex, especially with the new influx made from the deal. A lot of people were probably expecting that this to be fully done away with. However, we kind of just have to accept that the organization loves going there, and we don't really have a choice because we're going to be watching anyways. Sure, you've noticed a little bit of a change in my background. Trying to get some stuff done, staying busy on the road. But this content don't stop for nobody. So we'll make do with what we can. I'm going to start as I usually do, starting with the early prelims, ending at the main event, breaking down each fight and giving my thoughts on how I see it going throughout. Let's start this with the early prelim opener of Claudia Segula versus Priscilla Cachoeira. My opinion, I think Priscilla Cachoeira is going to be the dominant fighter in this fight. In this women's bantamweight matchup, I just think that Priscilla overall is a lot more experienced and be a lot more equipped for this victory. I think that she's faced off an overall better quality of fighters, and at this point in time, she'll be able to blend it a little bit better and just combine it with her own skill set, those experiences with her skill set to kind of leaning a definitive decision over Claudia in this matchup. Moving on, we have Muin Gafarov versus Jakub Wiklax. I know that a lot of people probably would lean towards Gafarov, but I think Wiklax got this one in the bag. I just think that he has too many advantages. I think his striking is better. I think he's got all the physical advantages. I think he'll push the tempo and pace of the fight a lot better. I think that as long as he doesn't get too sloppy, he'll be able to dominantly win this. I'm expecting Wicklax to actually get a finish, potentially a third round finish, in my opinion. I think his striking and his pressure he's going to put on Gafarov, as long as he is still maintains some caution, he'll be able to overwhelm him and end up dominating this fight. Moving on, we have Wang Kong versus Eduardo Mora. I think this one is going to be an interesting matchup for the women's flyweight division. In my opinion, I'm actually leaning towards Eduardo Mora. I think that Wang Kong is actually going to be the fighter that pushes the pressure and tempo of this matchup the more. However, I think Eduarda has a lot better responses. I think she has better counters. I think she's more equipped to respond in that type of fight. I think the momentum will shift back and forth a bit, but I think that overall Wang Kong will be the more forward pressing opponent, and I think that that's going to leave her a lot more open, and that's where Eduarda will really shine. In my opinion, I think that this goes to a decision, but I do see Eduardo winning a potentially 29-28 or even split decision victory over Wang Kong. For our next fight, we have Javid Basharat versus Gianni Vasquez. In this one, I'm leaning towards Basharat, and no, it's not just because Gianni looks like an undiscovered Pokemon character right now with that blackout. However, but I just think that Basharat, I say all the time, I give people coming off losses a bit more credit because I expect them to really be upping the tempo. And then especially with Basharat going against a debutante, like losing her last fight, like I feel like he has a lot to prove, and he really will put it on the line to really show that in this matchup. I think this is going to be one of those performances where people will be a bit reminded why how he even made it to UFC in the first place. While no, he's not a top contender by any stretch of the means, but I do think that just skill set wise, he has a bit of an advantage, especially with experiences as well, where he'll be able to kind of turn the debutant back and give him a loss for his first fight. I think that this one also goes to decision in favor of Basharat. And then moving on, we have the female fighting nerd of the group. We have Bruna Brazil versus Ketlin Souza. All the, at least the main four fighting nerds on the male side, all lost their fights back to back to back. And then they all end up coming back in their very next fight with dominant performances and victories. Only one left at this point is Kyle. But in my opinion, Bruna Brazil doesn't has never followed that blueprint. I think she's lost a bit. She doesn't look as skilled. She's lost more than just once in the UFC. She doesn't look that skilled of a fighter in comparison. Her hands always look a bit slow to me. Her overall fight IQ seems to be lacking, just comparatively speaking as well. I don't really see her as a genuine contender in her division. I think that in this matchup against Ketlin Souza, she's actually the one who's going to lose. I think that Souza is going to put way too much pressure on her. And I think Bruna Brazil gets really sloppy when you kind of force her to do too much thinking and acting at once. Don't really see her having. If she doesn't have super sharp boxing or striking in any way, she's not that fast. Overall, there's just too many gaps in her overall game. I don't think that any of the things that she has strengths in, she's good enough to the aspect that she'll just force Catelyn Souza back or even overwhelm her. Say all the time, this is MMA, anything's possible. But for me, from my perspective, it just seems very unlikely that Bruna Brazil has the skill set and mindset necessary in order to get Caitlin Souza out of there in this one or to get a decision victory. My opinion, Souza wins this one by either third round finish or by decision 29-28. Moving on, we have a contest between the oldies but goodie. We have Nikolay Fertinikov versus Nico Price. Listen, Nico Price is always good to watch every now and then, but I just don't really see him at that level, especially in his older age right now. You know, both of these fighters are coming off losses, but I actually think that Nikolay Vertinikov is just gonna be the one who overwhelms Nico a bit. I think this is gonna be a back and forth, sloppy slugfest between the two. If I'm gonna be honest, I really just believe that it's gonna be a bit of a slug out, nothing too pretty, but it'll be entertaining. And I think it's going to end with the decision going to Nicolay because I don't really see either of these two knocking each other out or submitting each other. I just don't see a finish on either side. Anything's possible, but I think it's highly unlikely. I think more likely they're just going to have a bit of a quote unquote bar fight, slug it out, go back and forth, and I think Nicolay is just going to be the one who did more damage. Moving on, we have the feature prelim of Alex Morono versus Daniel Donchenko. Now, this one isn't fun for me to say because I'm a big fan of Alex Morono. I would enjoy his fights. Love that he's always game, always tries to go out there and put give it his all or die on his shield if necessary. However, I do not believe that he's currently at the level where he can be competitive against genuine contenders. I think Daniel Donchenko is just too tall of a task for him at this point in his career. I think the aggression is going to be too much. I think the power is going to be too much. I just don't really see any aspect that Morono really has outside of experience that he could utilize over Daniel Donchenko. And sure, he might be able to do some quote unquote crafty vet stuff right now and secure the victory. But I find it very unlikely. I think Daniel goes out there and puts it on him and tries to set an example. I think Daniel Danchenko ends up winning this one by finish in the first or second rounds by just overwhelming Morono. Morono is good. He has solid fundamentals and awareness. However, I just don't see that being enough to kind of keep Danchenko off him, especially to get the victory. Moving on, we have the main event. We have Dustin Jacoby versus Julius Walker. I was initially pretty conflicted about this matchup because Jacoby has very solid fundamentals, great kickboxer, very skilled. Julius Walker has nowhere near the technical skill that he has. He kind of plods forward and is completely open to being hit. However, I had to come to the realization that Walker is fairly durable. And while Walker might do what seems reckless to most by just walking forward, he has this overwhelming just height and reach. And he's just kind of a very big guy to get over with a decent chin on him. And I think whereas Jacoby has kind of been in this gradual state of decline with his older age. He's been looking slower. His punches don't have as much pop as they used to. He's become a lot more susceptible and vulnerable. And then I think once I considered that, the more I thought about it, I just thought that on paper, while Jacoby might be the much more skilled fighter, I think in practice, Walker is just the more effective fighter right now. And because of that thought process, I'm going to have to end up going with Julius Walker. I think a knockout is completely possible on both sides, but I'd probably say it's going to happen later if it does. So I'd say third round finish for Julius Walker or unanimous decision victory. Moving on, we have Gene Matsumoto versus Farid Basharat. I'm going with Basharat for this one. I'm a huge fan of Basharat and the quality of performances he's been putting on since he's joined the UFC. I think that he has just been on quite the run and really presenting himself as a contender, especially for that bantamweight division. So much other stuff going on within it, from us having people like Umar and Marab and O'Malley now, and even Yadong, like fresh blood is always a welcome in this, and I think Basharat has just been having an excellent go at it. I think Gene Matsumoto is an excellent fighter as well. However, it's one of those ones that y'all can call me biased, but I just think that Basharat's skill set is too much for him. His speed is a little bit too much, and his IQ. I think overall he's just ahead of Matsumoto in those categories. And I think he gets Matsumoto out of there. I think in the second or third round, Bashara ends this fight by a finish. Moving on to our next matchup, we have the newly added fighting nerd of Mikhail Alekshechuk. While he's not one of the main guys, but since Alekshechuk has joined the fighting nerds, he's been going on a tear. And don't get me wrong, he's been doing well before them, but I feel as if you can see and feel the improvement in his game. Like he's more aggressive. Well, he always was an aggressive fighter, but he's more controlled in how he utilizes that aggression and how he places it forward, overwhelms his opponents, and really like chases those finishes and dominating performances. And I think that Mark Andre Barriault, while he's a fun fighter, I think at this stage in his career, he's just not capable of keeping up with fighters on the level of Alekshechuk. I really think that this isn't even going to be much of a competition. I'm just expecting a domination from Alekshechuk. I think he's just way too much for Mark Andre Barriault. expecting a first or a second finish in favor of Mikhail Oleksiejczuk because I just think that he's just that much better and he has that much more effective weapons to utilize against Marc Andre Barrios. Moving on, we have Jelton Almeida versus Rizvan Kuniev. I don't understand how this Kuniev guy keeps getting top five, top six level opponents in the heavyweight division, even though he's proven nothing. Yes, I understand heavyweight is shit, everyone says it, but we do have contenders. Another contender is just coming in and constantly going against top five people right now. Like, we even Walter Walker isn't doing that, and he's really been cementing himself. At this point in time, especially with like this guy's like drug history. I know Dana White likes guys who been caught cheating apparently, but it's just a bit crazy to me. This matchup though, I think Almeida gets it done. I think especially with how he got robbed against Volkov. And I know I would say he absolutely won that fight and got robbed against Volkov. But for the first time in my life, I didn't care because he put on that disgustingly atrocious performance and just kept forcefully trying to chase after his legs. And it didn't feel like he was trying to have effective transition of the fight, wasn't trying to get effective ground and pound, wasn't trying to properly chase submissions. It generally felt like Volkov was just too dangerous on the feet for him, and he was just one of the easiest path of to victory. In the words of one of my friends, it was a very unethical performance, and it just felt as if he was trying to slow down the fight rather than trying to actually win the fight. He ended up losing as a result of it. And I think he's starting to get the message that, yo, that type of shitty effort and fight style will not be tolerated. So I think Almeida is going to put a lot more effort into the finish. And if he does, I think he's completely capable of getting it. I think he's way too fast for Kuniev. I don't believe Kuniev's got wrestling on the level of a component like Almeida. While Kuniev definitely has much more power than Almeida, I don't think he'll be able to actually properly land anything, as I think Almeida just got way too many capabilities for him. My opinion, I think Almeida actually gets this done by a submission, whether rear naked or otherwise. I think that Almeida gets it done within the second or third round, and one of those performances that really contempt and really come into people's minds so they can remember, try to wash away some of his previous performances. Some of those things to really convince people that, yo, this guy really is good and really was deserving of this opportunity and position. But this Rizvan Kuniev guy, bro, like get him to the back of the line, bro. Like, let him prove something first. If Almeida beats him, let him prove something first against some of the lower ranked guys, if you even give him a rank. Moving on, we have the co-main event of Amir Albazi versus Kyoji Horiguchi. Now, a couple of these fights on this main card were fights that had me going, like really contemplating. This one, for example, initially I was actually leaning towards Amir Albazi. I thought that Albazi, just being the more active fighter and facing higher level competition, would be more likely to win this fight initially. But then I thought about it and I'm like, Horiguchi has fought some of the best in his era. Horiguchi is very fast, striking is very accurate, and he has very solid jiu-jitsu. Albazi, while he's a decent striker, is nowhere near as fast as Horiguchi. He's nowhere near as accurate as Horiguchi. His wrestling is not good enough to stop Horiguchi's jiu-jitsu, in my opinion. I think that it's more Horiguchi's jiu-jitsu is far more effective than Albazi's wrestling. I think Horiguchi's experience against high level opponents is actually comparable and or better to Albazi's. I personally say better when I really thought about it from the era of like people like Demetrius Johnson, who, in my opinion, is the GOAT, greatest all time. And that's the type of people who Haraguchi were competing against. So when Horiguchi came and we saw him shake out some of that ring rust, like you look at his fights, he's got more than twice as many wins as Elbazi has. I'm like, look at this discrepancy. Just to show you the big and huge gaps in experience, especially what happened to his friend Pantoja in losing his title due to a free injury. Right now, flyweight is wide open, and I really and truly believe that Horiguchi is perfectly capable of inserting his name to be in consideration among the likes of a Tatsuro Taira and a Manel Cap. So I think that this definitely could be a statement setting performance for Horiguchi to really earn himself an opportunity and steal one from others. My opinion, Horiguchi runs through him. The more I talk about it and the more I thought about it, I was like, Horiguchi probably wins this by finish. I say in the third round, but it's fully possible for it to go to decision as well, depending on how much improvements Bazi himself has made since that battering by Morono. But I think Horiguchi gets him out of there. I think he gets him out of there in the third. Moving on, save the best for last. We had the main event of Mario Bautista versus Vinicius Oliveira. Once again, this fight is another one where I was actually leaning towards Oliveira in this, thinking his power as well as those high fight instincts that he has would have been the differentiator. But then I thought about it, I'm like, it would be disrespectful for me to not choose Bautista. Bautista has fought higher quality opponents. Bautista has solid wrestling, which we don't really see as an aspect of Oliveira's game. We've seen Bautista also has very solid striking, while very, very clearly to everyone with two eyes, Oliveira is the one with the power advantage of the two. However, when you look at Bautista and you look at the skill set he has and what he's capable of, and his last performance, we saw him hunt those submission attempts against Umar. And the time before that, we saw him intentionally and purposefully put his striking on display and really try to kind of rectify some of those boring performances he's had, like even him just really against Jose Aldo, just doing everything in his power to not have and engage in actual fight. I feel as if Bautista is really trying to listen to the fans and then correct and adjust in his next outings. And Bautista is absolutely a fighter who's deserving of being at the top of the division. And I don't see Oliveira as being the guy to really take that from him. While anything is possible, Bautista is way more tested at a higher level than Oliveira. And he has a much wider array of skills to utilize. And he has much more weapons to really help break down Oliveira. While Oliveira has the power and great natural instincts when it comes to overall fight IQ and experience and just well roundedness, I have to lean towards Bautista. And when I consider all of that, my pick for this fight is Mario Bautista. I do not see this fight going to decision though. This is a 5 round fight. My opinion, I think Bautista gets the finish in the fourth. I wouldn't be surprised if it came much earlier because of the tempo I'm expecting this fight to be at. I'm expecting a lot of back and forth, a lot of pace on both sides. But I just think Bautista is going to be too much for him and overwhelm him. I think that by the time he gets to the fourth round, it would have been over. Bautista with the finish. But there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Those are my picks for our first fight night card of the year and first fight night card on Paramount. Let me know what y'all think though. Do y'all agree? Do y'all disagree? Y'all think I'm stupid? Y'all think I'm smart? Let me know right down in the comment section down below. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.